In this video, I am going to share with you a step-by-step pattern for making this cute Amigurumi crochet Easter bunny. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this, I am using 4-ply cotton yarn along with a crochet hook of size 3 mm. Now let us begin by making the hands for the bunny. So begin with a magic ring in a white color yarn and then chain 1. Now let's start making the row 1. Make 4 single crochet stitches into the center. So that's 2, 3 and 4. Now close the magic ring. And now for the second row, make 2 single crochet stitches in each and every stitch. So insert the needle onto the first stitch and make a single crochet increase. Now put a stitch marker into the first stitch. And this marks the beginning of second row. Now continue to make single crochet increases for the next 3 stitches. So that's the second increase, and then the third increase, and that's the fourth increase. So by the end of the second row, you will have 8 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker. Give it a nice shape, and then let's start making the third row. Make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the third row, and then continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting stitch. So which means for the third row you will have 8 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and into the next stitch make a slip stitch and then make chain 1. Now trim the excess thread by leaving a long tail end, and then insert the starting tail end into the hand as a stuffing as shown in the video. Just roll it and put it into the hand. Now make another one with the same pattern, and each one of it will be the hands for the bunny. Now put them aside and let's start making the ears for the bunny. Again with the white color yarn, begin with magic ring and then into the center make 6 single crochet stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now close the magic ring and then let's start making the second row. So for the second row, make 1 single stitch into the first stitch and then make 1 more single stitch into the same stitch. So here we have made a single crochet increase. Now put a stitch marker into the first stitch of the second row. Now continue to make single crochet increases in each and every stitch over the first row. So by the end of the second row you will have 12 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker, make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back. Now make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch for row 3, 4 and row 5 as well. So which means for row 3, 4 and 5 you will have 12 single crochet stitches in each row. After completing row 5, remove the stitch marker and then make 1 single stitch into the next stitch and put the stitch marker back. Now into the next stitch make 1 invisible decrease. Insert the needle into front loops of next 2 stitches and then single stitch. That's the invisible decrease. Now continue to repeat this pattern of 1 single stitch and 1 decrease throughout the row for 4 times. So this is the second repetition, and once the last stitch is done, remove the stitch marker, make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back. And then continue to make 1 single stitch in each and every stitch for row 7 and row 8. So by the end of the 7th and 8th rows, each row will have 8 single stitches in each row. So once all the rows are done, remove the stitch marker and now into the next stitch make 1 slip stitch, then chain 1 and trim the excess thread. So this completes one ear. Now repeat the same pattern from row 1 to row 8, and then you will get another ear as well. So put them aside and let's start making the bow for the bunny. So for this I am taking yellow color yarn and begin with a slip knot, then make chain 3. Now skip the 2 stitches from the hook and we are going to work completely into the first stitch. So make 2 half double crochet stitches and then make chain 2 and do the slip stitch again into the same chain space. This completes the first side of the bow. Now for the second side, again begin with chain 2 and into the same stitch make 2 half double crochet stitches and again chain 2 and make a last slip stitch into the same stitch. Then chain 1 and trim the excess thread by leaving a long tail end. And now using this tail end, we are going to wrap it at the center to hide the hole in the center. Wrap the yarn across the center as shown in the video and then make a knot to close that hole. You can weave in these ends and use the glue to attach it to the body base. If not, you can just leave them as it is and use a tapestry needle to attach it to the body. Now this completes the bow. Now put this aside. Now for the base of the bunny. Again it's the same white color yarn and a 3 mm crochet hook. Begin with a magic ring and then make chain 1. Now into the center make 8 single crochet stitches. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now close the magic ring and then let's start making the second row. For this, put the needle into the first stitch and make 2 single crochet stitches into the first stitch. So that's the first one and then the second one. So put a stitch marker into the first stitch to mark the beginning of the second row. Now continue to make increases in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So in the second row you will have total 8 increases, which means by the end of this row you will have 16 single crochet stitches. So after completing the last increase, remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third row. For this, begin with 1 single crochet stitch and then put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of third row. So for each and every row, putting the stitch marker is very important to mark the beginnings of each and every row. So for this, 1 single stitch and then into the next stitch make an increase. And now repeat this pattern throughout the row. So 1 stitch, 1 increase, again 1 stitch, 1 increase, and likewise by the end of the third row you will have 24 single crochet stitches. And if you see the shape, it will be nice, flat and even. Now remove the stitch marker, make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the fourth row. Now make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. Here we are not making any increases or decreases, so the count will be the same. In third row we have 24, so in the fourth row also we will have same 24 single crochet stitches. Now after completing the fourth row, remove the stitch marker and let's start making the fifth row. So for this, begin with 1 single stitch and again put the stitch marker back. Now make 4 more single crochet stitches, which makes a total of 5. So that's 2, 3, 4 and 5. Once all the 5 stitches are done, into the next stitch make 1 increase. Now repeat this pattern of 5 single stitches and increase throughout the row until you reach the starting stitch. Here I am making the last increase of 5th row, and by the end of this row you will have 28 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker, make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the 6th row. And now make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting stitch. So in row 6 also you will have 28 single crochet stitches. And if you see the shape, it's slowly taking the shape of an egg. So as we are making the Easter bunny, it's easy to identify, right? So for row 7, make one single stitch and then make 2 more single stitches. So we have 3 single stitches, and then make one increase. After that, make 3 more single stitches. That's 1, 2 and 3. So now this pattern is going to be repeated. The 3 single stitches, increase and 3 single stitches. So again start with 3 single stitches. That's 2 and 3. Now into the next stitch, make an increase and again make 3 single stitches. So that's 1, 2 and 3. Now continue the same pattern until you reach the starting point, and you will have 32 single crochet stitches by the end of the 7th row. Remove the stitch marker, make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of 8th row, and for the 8th row make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. By the end of the 8th row you will have 32 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 9. For this, begin with one single stitch and put the stitch marker back. Now make 6 more single crochet stitches, which makes a total of 7 stitches. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Once the 7 single stitches are done, into the next stitch make one increase. And this pattern is going to be repeated 4 more times throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So total you will have 36 single stitches. Remove the stitch marker, make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of 10th row, and for the 10th row make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. So by the end of the 10th row you will have 36 single stitches. Once the 10th row is done, remove the stitch marker and then let's start making the 11th row. So begin with one single stitch, put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of 11th row, make 3 more single stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. After 4 single crochet stitches, into the next stitch make one increase. Now make 4 more single crochet stitches in the next 4 stitches. That's 3 and 4. So this set of 9 stitches have to be repeated throughout the row for 3 more times. So by the end of the 11th row you will have 40 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker, make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back. And this marks the beginning of 12th row, and for the 12th row make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting stitch. So in 12th row also you will have 40 single stitches. Now here we have to change the color. I am using the red color yarn. If you wish you can use pink color as well. Now change the color as shown in the video. So grab the red color yarn and pull it through the previous single crochet stitch. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 13th row. So for this, begin with one single stitch and then from the back side pull the white color yarn, and this secures the safe color change. Now make 9 single crochet stitches. We already have made 1 and 2. Now continue. That's the 3rd single stitch. 4, 5, 6 7, 8 and 9. So once 9 single stitches are done, into the next stitch make one increase. That's 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row. So after making the last increase, 13th row is completed with 44 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 14th row. So for this, make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch. So before you continue, you can secure the threads on the back side by joining them both with a knot. So 14th row is where you have one single stitch in each and every stitch. So by the end of the 14th row, you have 44 single crochet stitches. You can now trim this white color yarn from the back side and secure them by making a knot. Now let's start row 15. Make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back. Now make 4 more single crochet stitches. So which makes a total of 5. So that's the second one, third one, fourth and then fifth. So after 5 single stitches, into the next stitch make one increase. Now for the next 5 stitches, make one single stitch in each stitch. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we are going to repeat this set overall for 4 times. So 3 more times, and by the end of this row you will have 48 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and make one single crochet stitch and mark the stitch to mark the beginning of the 16th row. Now continue to make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch for row 16 till row 21. Repeat this pattern. So for each and every row you will have 48 stitches in each and every stitch, each and every row. After completing row 21, we are going to begin with row 22. Make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of row 22. And for this again we are going to start with 5 single stitches. So that's 3, 4 and next we have the 5th one. So this one is 5. Now make an invisible decrease. Insert the needle into the front loops of next 2 stitches and then make a single stitch. And now continue to make 5 single crochet stitches in the next 5 stitches. So that's 3, 4 and 5. Now repeat this 11 stitches throughout the row. That is 5 single stitches, decrease and 5 single stitches throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And by the end of this row 22, you will have 44 single stitches. Make sure your work matches the count for each and every row to ensure that the shape of the project is perfect. Now for the next row, make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back. Now make 8 more single stitches, which will give a total of 9 stitches. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now make one invisible decrease. Insert the needle into front loops of next 2 stitches and then make a decrease. Now continue this pattern throughout the row until you reach the starting stitch. So here I am making the last decrease, and by the end of row 23 you will have 40 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker, make one single stitch, put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of row 24. Now make 3 more single stitches. So that's 2, 3 and 4. So after 4 single stitches, make one invisible decrease. Now make 4 more single stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now repeat this pattern of 4 stitches decrease and 4 stitches throughout the row until you reach the starting stitch. And by the end of row 24, you will have 36 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back and this marks the beginning of row 25. Now make 4 single stitches, that's 2, 3 and 4. Now into the next 2 stitches make a invisible decrease. Then repeat this pattern of 4 single stitches and decrease throughout the row for 6 times. So by the end of row 25 you will have 30 single crochet stitches. That's 4 single stitch, 1 decrease, and likewise until you reach the starting stitch. So here I am making the last invisible decrease of row 25 and I got 30 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker, make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back to mark the beginning of row 26. Make 2 more single stitches, which makes a total of 3 single stitch, and then make 1 invisible decrease and repeat this pattern throughout the row for 6 times. So this one is first time, and likewise put a count while you repeat the pattern, and by the end of this row 26 you will have 24 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the next row. For this make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of row 27. Make 1 more single stitch into the next stitch, so you have 2 single stitches, and then make 1 invisible decrease and repeat this pattern for 6 times. So that's 1 single stitch and then second single stitch, and next we have an invisible decrease, and repeat this 4 more times until you reach the starting stitch. And here I am making the last invisible decrease of row 27, and now I have got 18 single stitches. So here I am adding the stuffing to the toy. So take a good amount of Fiberfill and stuff it into the project in such a way that it holds a good shape. First stuff it across the edges, leaving a gap in the middle, and then stuff the center. So this way the toy is completely stuffed. Now let's assemble the hands, ears and eyes of the bunny. So for this, put the hands across row 13 and 14 with 14 stitches apart, and ears in row 3 and 4. Put the bow near the ear and the eyes across row 6 and 7 with 4 stitches apart. Now take the red color yarn into the tapestry needle and add the detailing of the nose or beak or anything you wanted to add for the bunny. Once the detailings are added, carefully insert the tail ends into the stuffing and then trim the excess threads. Now let's complete the project. We have the last 2 rows remaining. Begin with 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker, and this marks the beginning of row 28. Now into the next stitch, make 1 invisible decrease. And now we are going to repeat this pattern of 1 single stitch and then 1 invisible decrease throughout the row. And this one we have a repetitions of 6 times, so this one is the second repetition, and by the end of this row you will have 12 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the last row. Row 29, begin with 1 invisible decrease. Put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of row 29. Now continue to make invisible decreases throughout the row. So for the last row, you will have 6 single crochet stitches. So that's the second invisible decrease. And then this one is the third invisible decrease. Likewise, make 3 more invisible decreases. Once the stitching is done, remove the stitch marker. Make a slip stitch into the next stitch. Then make chain 1 and trim the excess thread by leaving a small tail end, just enough to close this opening. Now take the tapestry needle, take the yarn tail end into the tapestry needle. Now insert the thread into the front loops of all the 6 stitches in the last row. Gently pull the tail end so that the opening will be closed, and then secure this by making a knot. Now hide the tail end into the stuffing and then trim the excess thread. And now let's add some highlights to the project. For this I am using the blush and my makeup brush. So just take a pink color shade and highlight the cheeks and the ears. And if you wish, you can skip this part. If not, you can add it. And that's it. Your cute Easter egg bunny is now ready. Now put this next to the Mr. Bear and make them a nice couple. Nice idea, right? I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.